we're on page Kufyu Test, 3 lines from the top of the page.
Rabbi PALTIEL, there was no styrofoam cup, so this is very hot, so take it.
Oh, okay, thank you.
By the no, don't take it like this.
I got it, thank you. I've been burned in the past. Alright, so what is Reb Shlomo's question?
That the Ratzin we spoke about, that basically if someone's having a hard time fulfilling their initial Ratzin for, I guess, what the Neshama wants, then they have another Ratzin to make it easier. And
that you're doing something. We spoke about, let's say, smoking. He doesn't want to smoke, but he's smoking, so actually he does want. So how does it?
So we discussed and explained.
Good question.
Bloom likes it.
I'll take this off. It'll work out.
There is a overall permeating rotzin, all-encompassing rotzin, that a person wants that which he wants. A person wants that which represents his presence and represents the fact that he's alive and healthy and well. All these things, these are background ritzonos. Person wants to be healthy not in order to be able to do anything, but just to be healthy.
Like he wants to be alive.
Yeah, like he wants to be alive. So the person smokes despite the fact that it's not good for him. That's because he's giving in to the other satisfaction that it brings to him in his life. Rotzoin that we are talking about is the rotzoin that brings the force, the koyach ha-nefesh, out into the practical arena. That's what he said, koyach ha-rotzin.
So that rotzen which he actually decides in the end he's going to give in, how do we call that rotzen in regards to the rotzen ha-nefesh?
It's a subset of the rotzen. It's not the rotzen ha-nefesh per se. For instance, a person is suffering. And he goes through the suffering and he tries to overcome the suffering and just to continue to live. He would not at that time, even though he is suffering. It's very rare that people, Rahman al-San, take their lives because they're suffering. He would rather go through the suffering and stay alive. Because the rotzen
To remain
lichya
on this call, press 1.
is a much deeper than any rotzen that of experience. This is what we're trying to identify. It's
So
Toyas and Nefesh.
So there's two types of rotzen.
There are two levels in Rotzen.
We already spoke about that.
All Rotzen is rooted in the essential Rotzen, and then there is the effect of Rotzen.
So how could it be an effect from the original rotzen to do something contrary to that?
So that Rotzen, what he's doing contrary to that, is that he's willing to suffer this contradiction because he doesn't want to give up on the bigger picture.
But that kind of will has some kind of base. Where does it get that?
The bigger picture, I'm saying the bigger picture is more important to him than it takes up the whole nefesh than that which the immediate, the momentary experience.
Now, I'm asking on the opposite. How can he take the momentary? Where does that rotzen? Why is it so strong, that momentary rotzen, to overcome the
Essential.
Yeah, where is its root? I mean, its only root is the effect from the original roots, and the original roots doesn't want to do it. So can it be stronger than its effect? The effect.
No, wait a second. You're going in circles. Start again.
We're saying that the lower rotzen, the momentary rotzen, is an effect original from the original rotzen. So how can
No. You're taking things out of context. On the moment he's suffering, he doesn't want to suffer. But he's willing to take that because he doesn't want to give up the bigger picture.
Would this be compared to the situation of the Frierdiker Rebbe? That we
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, but I'm asking on the opposite way. Why would he, let's say, smoke? Why would he give up if the whole?
What would he give up?
Why would he smoke?
Why would he smoke? And we're saying now on the opposite, that he would
He wants to satisfy himself. He wants to give in to himself.
So this rotzen, it's only an effect of the original rotzen, and how could it go opposite to where it comes? This is just an effect. How could it be stronger than the?
Rabbi, didn't you
Once
previously talk about the difference between desire on a personal level and will?
One second. Let's take this out. I want to get rid. This is not. The part of his rotzen in this giving in is the fact that he wants to recognize his overall mitzias, his overall rotzen, and by taking away the satisfaction of the pleasure that he wants, he is, as a matter of fact, minimizing his own power of his own will.
That's very insightful.
That's basically
I missed it.
what's going on.
So I missed the last one.
If he stands up against his desire to smoke, so in a certain sense, he is minimizing his own presence. He wants to recognize his presence, and he wants to smoke. He doesn't want to minimize his own mitzias. to put it to correctly, it's stupid. Why is it stupid? Because his mitzvah does not consist in the momentary experience. His mitzvah is what the Creator has given him, a place in the world. It's a misunderstanding of his own mitzvah.
Maybe this is an aside point, but if someone understands it, this would be a good way how to overcome certain...
Absolutely. Let me tell you something. I used to smoke. I smoked for decades. Not much. Not like a crazy guy. You know? 10 cigarettes a day. I smoked
10 cigarettes a day?
for decades. Then one time I started to think, I thought into it, what do I get out of smoking? And I thought about it, I said, I don't need it. And I just dropped it like a hot potato. The doctor said, you didn't go, I didn't wean myself off. I just said, no, I don't need it.
You asked yourself, why do I do this?
Mm-hmm.
And prior to that, before that moment, you didn't question. It was just the pleasure.
I mean, like habit, whatever it is, he was giving me something. And I said, what is it?
But
and I saw that I said, hey, this doesn't make any sense. I don't want it. I don't need it.
I don't need it. But when you asked yourself, didn't you sense the pleasure, the satisfaction of it?
I don't need it. It's not a satisfaction. It's nothing.
When I tried to stop, when I asked myself that question, I said, oh, it's enjoyable. I like the break. I like the thoughts that I have while I'm having a smoke.
So I went a step further. Not all of these things, what you like, but what's behind it. And I found that behind it is nothing. Telling you, the doctor was amazed. You mean to say you didn't wean yourself off slowly? No, nothing. I just didn't. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
I don't need it.
Because it was interpreted that it does make sense. All the years, it was like deception that it does make sense. No?
I don't know. That's a way too complicated for me. Okay. Let us get inside the mimer. I think we do much better there.
Let's have a smoke break.
We have 4 lines from the top of course, page Kufiyutes.
Yeah, I've been clean since before I got married.
The Rebbe is speaking about Rotzen. Rotzen, the Rebbe speaks about as an example, as a model for what's called koiches makifim, koich makifi. We have identified that there is 2 types of koiches. Koiches pnimim and koiches makifim. Koiches pnimim are the koiches that engage directly in what they are doing. And they are completely identifiable by what they're doing, like chokhmah, seichel. What you understand, that's your seichel. And while you're understanding it, you are completely into it. You define the understanding. That's a seichel. That's koich pnimi. And for this we have illustrations, limitless. Everything that we do as an action, we get involved in it. If you write, you have to be writing. You can't be writing inadvertently.
3 lines.
Your hand has to be trained, and you have to focus, and you have to actually do carefully what you're doing. And the hand has to have a feel for what you do for the writing. That's part of the chush haksiva. And Rotzen, in contrast, is called makifi. Makifi means that even though it's also a koyach, but this koyach is not an entity unto itself. It cannot be done without involving the whole nefesh. In Seichel, it is correct to say, I understand with my Seichel. The Seichel belongs to the Nefesh, but the Nefesh understands with the Seichel. Whereas Rotzen, you cannot say, I want because with the Koyach HaRotzen. I want because I want. The whole Koyach consists in the wanting of the Nefesh. That's what the Koyach is. Okay, 4 lines from the top again. Shehakoyach eina yatzim hanefesh. They're talking about here. He's talking about chokhmah, seichel. The koyach is not atzmus hanefesh. It's not the atzmus hanefesh. It's not the etzem of the nefesh.
Next line.
And as we said, when we learned it, that seichel can be invested into something, into understanding something that is completely contrary to your own nefesh. The example we had was the Sanhedrin in Beis Hamikdash were able to delve in to understand which part of a certain action, of a certain activity is Avodah Zorah. And I want to point out, when the Sanhedrin had to judge an action, whether it's Avodah Zorah or not, that judgment is not from Torah, but the Torah looks at it as Avodah Zorah. Avodah Zorah is whether the Avodah Zorah consider it Avodah. So they had to get into their mindset. Do they consider it Avodah Zorah? That's what constitutes Avodah Zorah. And the Sanhedrin was able to do that, because with Seichel you can understand what you need to understand. Can you imagine? There was an Avodah Zorah called Pe'er.
Yeah.
Pe'er is the most disgusting type of activity. You know what Pe'er is?
Yeah.
Can somebody explain to him what's Pe'er? I'd throw up if I did.
I don't know if we have to.
He doesn't know what Pe'er is.
Someone would excuse themselves in front of the idol.
To go to the bathroom, that would be their service.
Excuse themselves.
Go to the bathroom.
Yeah, they would say, "Excuse me."
Okay, Blue? Okay.
He's too perplexed. I don't blame you.
I don't have that kind of.
You don't have it? Okay. Baruch Hashem. No kidding.
I still don't understand. So it's a pair is going to the bathroom?
Yeah.
Okay.
In front of the Avodah Zorah.
In front.
Yeah. Oh, now it makes sense. All right. And the Sanhedrin had to study this and know what constitutes an Aveda, what constitutes not an Aveda. And that is based on their mentality, not on the mentality of the Avodah Zorah. That is possible with Seichel to understand this kind of thing, to learn and study. Okay, again, further in the 4th line. Ma she'enkin harotzoin, which is different in Rotzoin. The Rotzoin is also a koyach. A koyach min hanefesh, as the Rebbe expresses it. Me hanefesh. A koyach from the nefesh. Which means it is not the entire nefesh. It's a koyach from the nefesh. And yet, Einei mitzius le'atzmai. It is not a presence unto itself, chutz le'atzmos hanefesh. External, of what chutz means, besides, in addition to atzmos hanefesh. It is not an entity unto itself, in addition to atzmos hanefesh. If it were so, we would be able to say there's the nefesh and there is the fact that the nefesh wants something, and these two states can be separated. There's wanting and there's a nefesh, but that is not the case. The rotzein is not separate from the atzmos hanefesh. Sheharei, since that Rotzein hu, the Rotzein is rak, only hatoyas amshochet hanefesh. It is the leaning, the turning, and amshochet hanefesh, and drawing the nefesh, lays a dover, to create an interest in the nefesh for something. But this interest never separates from the nefesh itself. He creates an interest in the nefesh, and the nefesh is drawn to this and pays attention to it. And this is not separate from the nefesh itself.
I think.
One second. Let us try and focus in before we ask questions. What is the meaning of the word hatoyas amshochet hanefesh l'sedom? That the drawing of the nefesh itself to something. Loi bivchines mitzias dover le'atzmai. Not in a manner of mitzias dover as a separate entity unto itself. The will, this is a separate entity besides the nefesh. This hatoyas amshochet hanefesh that engages, not only engages, but represents the nefesh itself. If you drew the nefesh to something, the interest in the whole nefesh is involved in this interest. Lo b'chinas mitzias le'atzmai, in this rotzein is not b'chinas, is not in a manner that can be isolated as an entity unto itself. There's a nefesh and there is this want. V'lochein, and for this reason, Rebbe elaborates in order for us to get the point of it. For this reason, b'chol ha'koiches, in all the other koiches, gam kshi ha'nefesh mistalekes mehem. Even after the nefesh mistalekes mehem, he moves away from them. He's no longer interested in it. Nonetheless, nishar mehem eis a dover. Something remains from that koyach, from that experience before, from before when the nefesh was involved in it. What does that mean? What remains in it? Kamoi b'koyach haseichel, as in the case of koyach haseichel. Kishamas ken eis a dover. When a person understands something, and the understanding is at the time when he understands, the nefesh is involved in understanding this. However, harei there, behold, gam sheha nefesh mistalekes mi ho'inyan. Even after that, the nefesh is moved away from it. He's no longer involved in it. He learned something. At the time when he learned it, he was involved. Now he's no longer involved in something else. Nisharo, that remains a haskalah, the understanding etzle by him. He now possesses that understanding.
What means kashanefesh mistalkes meine mishras?
He's no longer involved in this. He's involved in something else. He's moved away from that activity.
Nevertheless, an imprint remains.
But the activity, the result of the activity remains with him. He understood something, and that remains with him. Now, okay, I understand it. I have this knowledge.
On Friday, you said, if I remember correctly, Amshachas Nefesh le'ezeh davar. We talked about the sky, and then
One second. We're talking about seichel right now. In other koiches, which are separate from the nefesh itself, and that is manifest with the fact that even after that the nefesh is mistalik, is no longer interested in that.
Yeah.
What the experience that you had remains with you.
Fine. Okay, so that's seichel.
That's the same.
Fine, but the line above that was already about nefesh per se, right?
Yeah, but
About ratzon per se, right?
Yeah.
Sorry. So, what? Just to get clear on what it could be that would draw a nefesh, le'ezeh davar. What thing would draw a nefesh? And I think it was said on Friday, the sky.
You want to go back to the words hatois hanefesh.
Well, just to get clear on what an understanding of what it could
The
mean.
whole principle of rotzoin. Let me not talk about anything specific. The whole principle of rotzoin, even though we said it's a koyach, but this koyach is not a presence unto itself that can be identified independently of the nefesh.
Okay.
So that means that when he's not involved, what
That means that when he's not involved, he doesn't have the rotz.
But he's saying that the rotz is always there. Rotz elichas is always there.
He doesn't have that rotz. He doesn't have the experience of that rotz.
Right. So what would arouse ratzon by nefesh? Right. Is it dava? Why would something arouse a will, a wanting, a ratzon?
That's a fair question. And we are all very interested, and I would ask all of us to stay with the Rebbe on this. You can see that the Rebbe is going further and trying to explain various things. Let us go through the whole thing, and then we'll see if we to try to understand.
Okay, but it does seem like we moved through this point now.
We didn't through it. Just this. No, we didn't move through the point.
Fine.
Just an introduction. This is like a first introduction. In contrast to the other koiches, that's all we did.
Okay, but again, the rotz elichas is not there when he doesn't.
What?
Let's say the rotz and the rotz elichas, isn't it always there in the nefesh?
All the time.
So how we're saying now when he's not involved, it's not there.
Okay, can I?
But Rotzin doesn't have to be involved. Rotzin doesn't have to be involved. This is never Rotzin HaNefesh.
But we're saying that all the koiches, when the nefesh is mistalkes, the thing stays, and by Rotzin is not like this. That when the nefesh is not.
You know what? Again, let us go through. Everybody's not finished with us, okay?
Wait. I need to clarify this. I see this as since we speak about we started with Avodah Zarah. When I look at the sun and the moon, I see it's Hashem's creation. It's Atzmus, and then so I see it's Hashem's creation, and then later on I look at the sun and the moon and I say, oh, that's really beautiful, without thinking of Hashem's creation behind it. Is that what we're talking about?
I would like to learn everything that the Rebbe gives us. Then we'll go back.
I'm making a comment about what we're learning now.
We didn't learn it yet. He said there is Rotzin Hatois HaNefesh. Each one of us will see the sun in our own way. Let's go through the Rebbe contrast koiches from Rotzen. The Rebbe initiated this thing. We should not consider knowing what the Rebbe is saying before he had finished saying it.
Just trying to understand.
Huh?
Rabbi Paltiel.
That's fair?
Rabbi Paltiel. Hello?
So, yes.
Can I say something?
I don't know. Is it in line with what we're learning, or this is something that with what you're thinking?
No. It's in line with what's going on there right now. I want to say a message to my classmates, boys and girls. Please, you understand that any time Rabbi Paltiel, you have a question that Rabbi Paltiel sees needs to be answered, he'll answer it. So right now, he's telling you, forget about these questions right now. Stick with me and stick with the library. So we have to trust the Mashpia here.
Wow.
That's what I wanted to say.
Merci beaucoup. All right, thank you. Let us. It's not Mashpia. It's the Rebbe is teaching us. Let him give him a chance. You see that the Rebbe didn't stop on this and saying koiches is he goes in and gives you the actual demonstration of it. That if you learn something and then you're no longer involved in it, that which you learn remains with you. And there's a vivid and a living presence in your mind. Because this learning is a possession. And you can possess it without being involved. When a person understands something, so there you see like this. Even after that the nefesh, mistalekes mihoinyan, has been distracted from this inyan, he's no longer interested in this. He got involved in something else. To explain these words, when a person understands something with this seichel, inevitably, it's impossible otherwise. It's impossible to activate any koyach without the nefesh allowing this koyach to be active. Particularly in seichel. In seichel is you understand between koyach and seichel, but you have to want to understand. And if you don't get involved in this understanding, you're never going to understand it. You have to bring yourself to it. Oh, I really want to understand it, and get yourself into it. So there is a nefesh involved at a higher level also. But when this interest in this inyan ends, you have now acquired a piece of knowledge. That remains with you. This knowledge does not consist in the experience of the nefesh. It consists of having this particular nefesh knowledge. It is I'm seriously out. Let's continue. When the Rabbi begins with the Etzler, Mikol Shekain is surely when he ultimately bestows and transmits this seichel to someone else. Or keshebo hakbiksav, when this seichel is rendered into writing, v'necha b'sefer, and becomes engraved on a sefer, in a book, on a piece of paper. There clearly, this whole episode, this whole experience, this whole effort of understanding this thing, now it has been transferred to a piece of paper, and there on this piece of paper it remains forever. This is like recording something on an eternal manner. And what is it? The whole thing is that which was understood at a certain moment in a person's mind. V'gam be'atzmoi, And then beyond that, even by himself, within himself, nisharo hahaskolo. The haskolo, the understanding, remains gam kshemistalago yinin. Even after that he distracts himself from the inyan. But the etzem inyan that he understands this remains with him. Where do we see that? B'chol ois eis. At any moment, yochel yizkir aleho. He can resort back to this understanding, and he can bring it all back. Mipnei, because it remains in his brain. Ki yodua, as is known, that which in brain had experienced remains engraved in the brain. And then the Rebbe says in parentheses, V'gam dover hanelam legamri. Even something that is completely obscured from his mind. He learned something, but he forgot completely what he learned. Nishar mimenu rishimo b'moichei. A trace, an effect of it remains in his brain. But Yodua, and as is known, binyan hachaloimes, regarding the principle of dreams. Chaloimes come to a person, and he has absolutely no idea what this dream is all about. And yet, this is chalemes, a real chalemes, something real to him. Shehein dishar mehehure diyemo, from the concerns during the daytime. Gam b'meshes man rav, even that which occurred over a long time. Nonetheless, this is something which transpired in his mind, and occasionally it's possible to be revived in his dream as a living thing, as a current and a pertinent thing. Because that experience remains impressed and engraved on his brain.